If you're listening late at night, you might want to stay until the end. Something happened to me on the road, and to this day I can't understand it. My name doesn't matter. What matters is that I've been driving for over 20 years, always at night, always alone, always on the same route that cuts through the interior of Missouri between Kansas City and Springfield. 350 kilometers of cracked asphalt, ghost gas stations, and towns that look more like cemeteries with lights on. I like the silence. I like the solitude. The cabin of my Peterbilt is all I need. Reheated coffee in a thermos, the soft crackling of the AM radio, the constant rumble of the diesel engine lulling me like a breath. I no longer have a wife. My daughter stopped answering my calls about 5 years ago. The road has become my family. That night, it was almost 2 in the morning when I left the last open gas station. Thursday, clear sky, but with that low-lying fog that clings to the ground and makes the headlights look like 2 tunnels of hazy light. The temperature had dropped. I could feel the cold seeping in through the cracks in the door, even with the heater on. I'd been on the road for about 40 minutes when I realized it. The radio started making a different kind of static. It wasn't normal static. It was like someone was trying to tune into something, but couldn't. I turned it off. The silence became heavy. You know when you feel like someone is watching you, but there's no one around. That's what it was like. I adjusted the rearview mirror. Only darkness behind me. That's when I saw it. On the shoulder of the road, about 200 meters ahead, illuminated by my headlights, there was a figure, standing still, completely motionless, arms hanging loosely at its sides, head slightly tilted. I couldn't see its face, just the dark silhouette against nothing. I thought it was someone asking for a ride, or a lost drunk, maybe a large animal, a deer, perhaps. But the posture, it wasn't natural. I kept driving. The figure became clearer and clearer. I was already about 50 meters away when it simply was no longer there. It disappeared. I looked in the side mirror. Nothing. Rear view mirror. Nothing. I braked slightly and turned my head back, looking out the window. The shoulder of the road was empty, just the fog drifting on the ground. Tiredness, I thought. I need more coffee. But 15 minutes later, she was there again. This time, she was closer to the road, not on the shoulder, but almost stepping on the white line. Same posture, same stillness, as if she were waiting. My heart raced. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. The headlights illuminated the figure for a full 5 seconds. I could see more details, dark clothes, maybe a long coat, long hair, or something covering their head. I couldn't see their face, but the feeling was that he could see me perfectly. When I got close, she disappeared again. He didn't run. He didn't move. It wasn't there anymore. I stopped the truck in the middle of the road, engine running, headlights on. I got out of the cab, stepping onto the cold asphalt. The wind had completely stopped. There wasn't a sound, not a cricket, not an owl, nothing, just the low rumble of the diesel engine behind me. I walked to where she should be. I looked at the ground. No footprints, no marks, nothing. I went back to the truck. I slammed the door shut. I turned the radio back on. Just static. I turned it off. I took a deep breath. You're tired, man. That's all. But I knew it wasn't. I got back on the road. I sped up. I wanted to get out of that area. I wanted to get past that cursed stretch quickly. I knew every curve of that route, every sign, every pothole. But that night, everything seemed different, longer, emptier, as if the road had stretched out. 10 minutes later, she appeared for the 3rd time. Now I was in the middle of the track, right in front of me. I didn't have time to think. I slammed on the brakes. The wheels locked up. The truck skidded to the side, puffing smoke from the tires. I smelled burning rubber. The steering wheel spun in my hands. I closed my eyes, bracing for the impact. Nothing. When I opened my eyes, the road was empty. The truck had stopped across the road, occupying both lanes. The engine was still running, headlights illuminating nothing. That's when I looked in the right side mirror. She was Leaf. Not on the road. Not behind the truck. She was inside the mirror stop, looking directly at me. Her face was still dark, but I could see her silhouette perfectly reflected. And the worst part is that she shouldn't have been at that angle. Physically, it didn't make sense. The rear-view mirror showed the right side of the truck, but she was staring straight at me. I turned my head to look out the window. Nothing. I looked in the mirror again. She remained there, motionless, waiting. I couldn't take my eyes off her. Every time I blinked, I was afraid that when I opened them again, she would be closer. My breathing was too rapid. I could hear my own heart pounding inside the silent cabin. I looked away. I looked ahead. I took a deep breath. It's not real. It's not real. I looked again. She was no longer in the right rear-view mirror. Relief. For a second, pure relief. Then I looked in the rear-view mirror. She was there. Closer. Now I could see more. The head was still tilted, but the body was slightly bent forward, as if it were getting closer. The hair fell over the face, but not completely. I could see a bit of the cheek. Pale skin. Too white. Almost gray. My hand trembled as I put the car in gear. I accelerated. The truck roared loudly, picking up speed, 60, 70, 80 kilometers per hour. I didn't look in the mirrors. I kept my eyes fixed on the road. The fog was now thicker. The headlights could barely cut through the darkness. But I felt that presence inside the cabin, as if someone were sitting in the seat next to me, breathing softly. I didn't hear anything, but I knew she was there. I glanced in the left rearview mirror. She was behind me now, inside the mirror. But this time, closer. Much closer. I could see the outline of her shoulders, the curve of her neck, and her eyes. My God, her eyes. Two deep holes, completely black. They didn't reflect light. They didn't blink. They just stared. I floored the accelerator. 90. 100. The road began to blur. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I no longer knew where I was going. I just wanted to get out of there. That's when I heard a sound. Low. Scraped. Like a fingernail scratching leather, it came from behind. From the empty space behind the seats, where there was nothing. Where there never had been anything. I looked in the rearview mirror again. My reflection was there. But behind me, behind my head, there was another silhouette, leaning, as if it were whispering in my ear. I yelled. I swerved the steering wheel to the side. The truck veered off the road, onto the shoulder, kicking up gravel and dust. I slammed on the brakes. The wheels locked. The truck skidded and came to a stop on its side, almost tipping over. Silence. My chest was rising and falling rapidly. Sweat was dripping down my forehead. I was trembling. I looked in the mirrors. Empty. All empty. I opened the door. I got out. My legs almost gave way. I walked around the truck. I looked underneath. I looked along the sides. I looked inside the cab through the window. Nothing. I was alone. But when I got back into the driver's seat and closed the door, I felt the seat sink slightly, as if someone had just sat down in the back seat, a bench seat that my truck didn't have. I couldn't move. My hands were frozen on the steering wheel. Every muscle in my body screamed at me to get out of there, to run, to abandon the truck. But I was paralyzed. The air inside the cabin changed. It got cold. So cold I could see my own breath forming white clouds. The heater was on. The engine was still warm. But that cold, it was different. It came from inside, as if someone had opened a door to some place where temperature doesn't exist. Then I listened again. That scraping sound. Fingernail, leather, or maybe fabric. It came from behind, right behind my head. Slow, dragging, as if long fingers were sliding along the inside wall of the cabin. I closed my eyes tightly. Don't look. Don't look. Don't look. But I knew he was going to look. I turned my head, slowly. I looked at the back seat, through the rearview mirror. It's you. She was sitting, bent forward, her hair now completely covering her face, falling like dark curtains. Her hands rested on her knees, fingers too long, too thin. Her skin had that pale gray tone that didn't seem human, and she was moving, not fast, slow, as if breathing, but wrong. His shoulders rose and fell in an irregular rhythm, too deep, as if each breath hurt. I tried to start the truck. The key turned, the engine coughed, and died. I tried again. Nothing. Again. Nothing. The battery was good. The engine was warm. But the truck simply, I didn't care. I looked in the rearview mirror again. She had raised her head. Her hair still covered her face. But now I could see a piece, one side, her mouth, slightly open. Cracked lips, almost black, and her teeth. My God, her teeth. They were normal, human. But the way she kept her mouth open, without blinking, without closing it, without moving, it was wrong. Then she tilted her head to the side, slowly. Like a dog listening to a distant sound, the hairs slid slightly, and I saw the eye, deep, empty, black, fixed on me, and she smiled. It wasn't a human smile. It was mechanical, forced, as if she were trying to imitate something she'd seen once, but never quite understood. I yelled. I turned around. I tried to open the door. It was locked. I pulled the latch. It wouldn't budge. I pounded on the window. I kicked the door. Nothing. That's when I saw her on the windshield, not on the road, not outside. She was reflected in the glass. It was as if she were standing behind me, leaning over my shoulder, her face inches from the nape of my neck. I could see the details now. The skin stretched over the bones, the sunken eye sockets, the mouth open at an impossible angle. And she was whispering. I couldn't understand the words. They were fast, overlapping, like several voices at once. But the tone, it was sweet, almost affectionate, like a mother calming a child. The truck started moving on its own. Forward. Slowly. I wasn't touching the accelerator. My hands weren't even on the steering wheel. But the truck was moving. 5 kilometers per hour. 10, 15. I looked at the road. It was straight, but my vision began to distort. The white lines curved. The fog formed shapes, faces, hands, silhouettes. My last reflex was to turn the steering wheel around sharply. The truck went off the road. Did it roll over? Did it crash? I don't know. I only remember glass breaking, metal being crushed, and that cold, that unbearable cold swallowing me whole. Then, nothing. I woke up with the sun shining on my face. I was sitting in the driver's seat, engine off, absolute silence. The door on my side was ajar, swinging slightly in the wind. I looked around. The truck was stopped on the shoulder, perfectly aligned, as if I had parked carefully, but I didn't remember doing that. I looked at the clock on the dashboard. 7:40 in the morning. The last thing I remembered was driving at 2:30, 5 o'clock. 5 hours that simply vanished. I got out of the truck. My legs were numb. I walked around. Not a scratch, not a dent, no broken glass. The truck was intact, as if nothing had happened. But when I looked at the windows, I saw the marks, hands, handprints, on the side of within from the glass, as if someone had pressed their palms against the window, trying to get out, or get in. They were small, delicate, long fingers, and they were all over the cabin, on the windshield, on the side windows, on the ceiling. I felt something wet on my neck. I touched it with my fingers, dried blood. I looked in the side mirror. I had scratches, 3 thin lines, running from the base of my skull to my shoulder, as if someone had dragged their fingernails across my skin while I slept. But I didn't feel anything. I got back into the cabin. The passenger seat was sunken in. The foam was compressed, as if someone heavy had been sitting there for hours. But I never carry passengers. Never. I touched the fabric. It was cold. I started the engine. It started on the first try. I put the truck back on the road and drove to the nearest gas station. I didn't tell anyone. What was I going to say? That I saw a ghost woman in my mirrors, that she was inside my truck. Nobody would believe it. I myself don't know if I believe it. But since that night, things have changed. I still drive, same route, same hours. I have no choice. It's what I know how to do. But now I feel her. Every night. Whenever I pass that stretch of road, between kilometer 140 and 160, I feel her. The cold, the presence, the weight on the bench that doesn't exist. And sometimes I look in the rearview mirror without meaning to, and she's there, always behind me, always watching, never gets closer, never does anything, just travels with me. I learned not to look anymore. I keep my eyes on the road. I cover the side mirrors with tape when I enter that section. I only use the rearview mirror when it's absolutely necessary. But I know she's there. I feel the seat sink. I feel the cold. I hear that strange, faint breathing right behind my head. And there are nights. There are nights when I swear I hear her whispering my name. A name I never told anyone on that road. Something happened to me, and to this day I can't understand it. My name is Rodrigo. I'm 28 years old, and this was my first month as a truck driver in the United States. I came from Brazil 2 years ago, trying to build something here. I got the job at Transcargo after months of sending out resumes. It was my chance. I couldn't let it go to waste. The route was simple. Leave Indianapolis at 11 p.m., drive along I-65 to Nashville, deliver the electronics before 6 a.m., night shift, empty road, alone for the first time. I was nervous, I won't lie. The truck was old, a 2008 Freightliner, with the cab smelling of old diesel and spilled coffee. The seat was torn, the steering wheel stiff, but the GPS worked, and so did the company radio. That was what mattered. I left the base at 11:15 p.m. The city was still busy, but gradually, as I entered the highway, the lights faded. All that remained was the black asphalt, the truck's headlights cutting through the darkness, and that heavy silence you only know when you're completely alone. The company radio crackled occasionally, nothing serious, just that usual hissing sound from a bad frequency. I tried to concentrate on the road, the yellow lines, the signs. My supervisor had said, "Keep your pace. Don't speed up. Don't stop unless necessary." I obeyed. Around midnight, the fog began to rise, dense, the kind that swallows everything. The headlights couldn't reach more than 3 meters ahead. I slowed down, gripped the steering wheel tightly. The GPS showed a clear route, but out there it looked like the world had ended. That's when the radio started hissing the loudest. And then, for the first time, I heard that voice. Transcargo 47, maintain speed at 55 mph. Stay in the right lane. I thought it was the operator. The voice was calm, masculine, professional. I picked up the radio and replied, received, right lane, 55 in, traf. Silence. I kept driving. The fog was getting worse. I could barely see the road. My heart was racing, but I tried to stay calm. It's just fog. You're doing well. Then the radio started crackling again. Transcargo 47, you're tense. Take a deep breath. I froze. How did he know? I stared at the radio on the dashboard. The green light was blinking slowly, as always. But that phrase, you seem tense. It didn't make sense. I picked up the radio again, hesitantly. Yes. The fog is thick here. Is everything all right? I waited. 5 seconds. 10. Nothing. Just a low, constant hissing sound. I shook my head. It must be tiredness. First night alone. Nervousness. The pressure of not making mistakes. I was creating things in my head. I kept driving. I-65 was completely empty. No cars, no trucks. Just me, the fog, and the dull rumble of the engine. Then the voice returned. Transcargo 47, reduced to 50 mph, sharp turn in 800 meters. I looked at the GPS. It didn't show any curves. The road continued straight for another 5 kilometers or so. I frowned, but I obeyed. I slowed down, and then, exactly 800 meters ahead, the road curved. My stomach tightened. The GPS hadn't shown that. I'm sure of it. I picked up the radio. My voice came out shaky. Received. Thank you for letting me know. Silence again. My heart was beating faster now. I tried to convince myself that the GPS was outdated, that the company had better information. It made sense. That made sense. But then the voice said something that destroyed all logic. Your left hand is on the steering wheel. Your right hand is on the gear shift. Your breathing is rapid. I immediately let go of the gear shift. I looked around, desperate. I searched for cameras, sensors, anything that could explain it. But the truck was old. It didn't have that kind of technology. I grabbed the radio forcefully, almost shouting. Who are you? How do you know that? The hissing grew louder. Then, slowly, the voice responded. I'm just helping, Rodrigo. My name. He said my name. I dropped the radio on the bench. My hand was trembling. I hadn't introduced myself. The base operator didn't use names over the radio. Only codes. I swallowed hard. I looked in the rearview mirror. Nothing. Just fog. I looked to the sides. Nothing. Just the black road disappearing into the mist. Stay calm, Rodrigo. You're doing well. The voice hadn't left the radio. She had come from inside the cabin. I instinctively slammed on the brakes. The truck skidded slightly before coming to a stop on the shoulder. I turned off the radio. I unplugged the power cord. I stood there, breathless, staring at the blank dashboard. Total silence. Just my breath. Just the wind hitting the metal. I picked up my cell phone. No signal. Shit. I stood there for almost 5 minutes, trying to think, trying to calm down. You are tired. You are hearing things. I started the truck again. I took a deep breath. I got back on the road, and then, even with the radio turned off, even with the cable ripped out, the voice returned. Don't stop again, Rodrigo. My throat was dry. My whole body was trembling. I looked at the radio on the passenger seat. The cable was disconnected. The screen was blank. But I had heard. Don't stop again, Rodrigo. The voice had come from somewhere inside the cabin. Not from the radio. Not from outside. From within. I sped off without thinking. I needed to get out of there. I needed to get to Nashville. I needed to see lights, people, anything. The fog was even thicker now. I could barely see the lane divider. My headlights seemed useless, swallowed by the white mist. The speedometer read 60 mph, but it felt like I was standing still. I picked up my phone again. Still no signal. I tried calling the base. Nothing. I tried calling any number. Nothing. "You don't need to call anyone." The voice was closer now, as if someone was sitting next to me, whispering in my ear. I turned my head sharply. Nothing. The passenger seat was empty, just the radio was off and my jacket was there. "I'm helping you, Rodrigo. Just keep driving." My voice came out hoarse, almost a whisper. Who are you?" Silence. Just the roar of the engine, just the wind hitting the metal body. And then, slowly, the voice answered. "Someone who knows this road better than you." My stomach churned. I wanted to stop. I wanted to get out of the truck. I wanted to run. But where to? I was in the middle of nowhere. Fog everywhere. No lights. No visible exit. And besides, the voice had said, to don't stop. "Stay in the right lane. In 400 meters. Reduce to 45 mph." I looked at the GPS. It kept showing only I-65. Straight. No curves, no warnings. But I already knew the GPS was wrong. I slowed down, and exactly 400 meters ahead, an overturned truck appeared on the left shoulder, partially within the lane. If I hadn't slowed down, if I hadn't stayed to the right, I drove slowly past the wreckage. There was no one there. No emergency lights. No police officers. Just the overturned truck, swallowed by the fog. "See, I'm taking care of you." My breathing was erratic. Tears began to stream down my face. I didn't understand what was happening. I couldn't think straight. "Please." My voice came out weak, broken. "Please, leave me alone." The voice did not respond immediately. Then, slowly, almost gently, she said, "I can't do that, Rodrigo. Not yet." I looked in the rearview mirror, and for the first time, I saw something. A silhouette, sitting in the back seat, dark, still, observing. I screamed. I slammed on the brakes. The truck skidded, went off the road, and came to a violent stop on the shoulder. I turned around, breathless, my hands trembling. Nothing. The back seat was empty. But I had seen it. I had seen it. "I told you not to stop." The voice was cold now, without gentleness, without calm. "Get back on the road, Rodrigo, now." I was frozen, hands gripping the steering wheel, eyes fixed on the rearview mirror. The back seat remained empty, but my whole body screamed that something. It was there. "Get back on the road. Now." The voice was no longer suggestive. It was an order. My hand trembled as I started the truck again. It started on the second turn. I took a deep breath, trying to control my panic. I just need to get to Nashville. I just need to survive until dawn. I got back on the road. The fog was so thick I could barely see the hood of the truck. It was like driving inside a cloud, or a dream, or a nightmare. "Very good, keep going. 55 mph, right lane." I obeyed. What else could I do? Minutes passed. Maybe 10, maybe 20. I lost track of time. The GPS kept showing I-65, but I didn't recognize anything anymore. No signs, no landmarks, just black asphalt and fog. "In 200 meters, take the exit on the right." I looked at the GPS. There was no way out. No, there's no way out here. "The GPS isn't showing it." "The GPS is wrong, Rodrigo. Take the exit." My throat tightened. I wanted to disobey. I wanted to keep going straight. I wanted to ignore that damned voice. But then I remembered the overturned truck, the curve that the GPS didn't show. He knew. He always knew. The exit appeared. A narrow ramp. No sign. No lighting. Just a black hole leading off the main highway. Take the exit. My hand turned the steering wheel on its own, as if it wasn't mine anymore, as if something else was guiding it. I entered the ramp. The road became even narrower. Cracked asphalt. Tall grass on both sides. No lights. No sign of civilization. Where are you taking me? Silence. Where are you taking me? The voice replied, cold and distant. Where do you need to go? My heart almost stopped. I wanted to scream. I wanted to get out of the truck, but my body wouldn't obey. My feet remained on the pedals. My hands remained on the steering wheel. The road curved slowly, and then ahead, I saw a light, weak, yellowish, flickering, a gas station. But it was wrong. The pumps were rusty. The windows were broken. There were no cars. There was no movement. Only that yellow light blinking above the entrance, like a dead headlight. Stop here. My voice came out in a panic. No, I'm not going to stop. Stop here. The engine died on its own. The truck slid until it stopped in front of the gas station. The silence that followed was absolute. No wind, no crickets, just nothing. I looked at the gas station. The door was ajar, swinging gently, as if someone had just left or entered. Get out of the truck, Rodrigo. I shook my head in despair. No, I'm not going down. You have no choice. And then, slowly, the driver's door began to open by itself. I didn't touch her, I swear. I didn't touch it. The cold night air entered the cabin. It brought a strange smell, metallic, rotten, like old meat mixed with rust. I looked in the rearview mirror. The silhouette was back, closer now, sitting right behind me. And this time, she tilted her head as if he were waiting. I couldn't move. I just stood there, frozen, staring at that thing in the rearview mirror. It had no face. It had no defined shape. It was just a dark, dense mass that seemed to suck up all the light around it. And she was watching. Come down, Rodrigo! My body obeyed before my mind. My feet touched the ground. The air outside was icy, colder than it should have been. My breath came out in white clouds. The truck door slammed shut behind me. I was alone. I looked at the gas station. The yellow light was still flashing. The door was swaying slightly. But there was no wind. Between. The voice was no longer inside the cabin. It was around me as if it came from everywhere at once. I took a step forward. My legs trembled. Every fiber of my body screamed to run. But where to? The road behind me had vanished. Only fog, as if the world had been erased. I pushed open the gas station door. Inside, it was dark. Only the light from outside dimly illuminated the empty shelves, the dust-covered counter, and the broken glass on the floor, and at the back, near the hallway that led to the bathrooms. Someone was standing. Costs, still, property. My voice came out weak, almost inaudible. Hey! The figure did not move. I took another step. The ground creaked under my weight. Are you okay? Slowly, very slowly, the figure turned its head, and I saw it. It wasn't a face. It was emptiness, a black hole where there should have been eyes, a nose, a mouth, as if someone had ripped everything away and left only the shell. I screamed. I stepped back. I tripped over something and fell to the ground. Glass cut my hand. Blood trickled down. The figure began walking towards me, slowly. One step, then another one. His feet made no sound. I got up and ran. I left the gas station. I ran to the truck. I pulled the door. It was locked. No! 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 I looked back. The figure was standing at the entrance of the gas station, watching, waiting, and then, from inside the cabin, the voice returned. You shouldn't have come, Rodrigo. I pounded on the window in despair. Let me in, please. The door opened by itself. I got in. I locked the door. I started the truck. It started on the first turn. I accelerated. I sped away from there. The road reappeared. The fog began to lift. The GPS started working again. 15 minutes later, I was back on I-65. Cars all around. Lights, license plates, reality. I stopped at the first gas station I found. A real gas station. With people, with fluorescent lights. I called the police. I told them everything. They listened, took notes, and said they would investigate. They never found the abandoned gas station. They never found the way out. I resigned the next day. It's been 6 months. I work in a warehouse now. Day shift. I haven't driven at night since. But sometimes, late at night, when I'm home alone, I hear the hissing sound, and the voice whispers, "You still owe me a delivery, Rodrigo." Something happened to me, and to this day I can't understand it. My name doesn't matter. What matters is that I've been driving trucks for 18 years. I know every damn curve on I-5, every rest stop between Seattle and San Diego, every stretch where the fog rolls in and you can't see 3 feet ahead. I've seen accidents, slept in the cab with snow pounding against the windshield, driven through storms that flipped other drivers' trailers. None of that scared me. I was the guy who laughed at the stories they heard at truck stops. You know, the ones about ghosts on the road, strange lights, voices on the CB radio. Nonsense, it always was. Until that night. It was a Thursday in late October. I was returning from a delivery in Redding to California, heading back up to Oregon. Light load, just medical supplies, simple stuff. I left around 10 o'clock at night because I wanted to avoid the next day's traffic. I-5 at night is almost empty in that stretch, especially after 2 in the morning. It's just you, the asphalt, and the constant sound of the diesel engine. It was cold, about 50 degrees Fahrenheit, maybe less. I had the heater on, but that autumn chill in Northern California has a way of seeping into the cabin, you know. You can feel it in your bones. I drank reheated coffee from a thermos I'd had with me since the afternoon. Horrible taste. But it worked. The CB radio was rather silent. Every now and then, a distant, static voice, some other driver complaining about the traffic down below or the rain in Portland. Nothing out of the ordinary. I was used to the solitude. I preferred it that way. After the divorce, the cabin became my real home. No questions, no arguments, just the road. Around 3 in the morning, I was near Weed. Do you know Weed? Small town, almost nothing there. A few exits, a gas station, a cheap motel. The road there is straight, surrounded by pine trees on both sides, and incredibly dark. The streetlights are spaced out. Sometimes you drive for miles without seeing anything but your own headlights. That's when I felt it. I can't explain it properly, but the air changed. It became heavy, as if something had entered the cabin with me. I checked the mirrors. Nothing behind me, nothing to the sides, but my stomach tightened in that way it does when you know something is wrong, even without knowing what. And then I saw orange cones, reflective barriers, and a highway patrol vehicle stopped on the shoulder, with its flashing lights off, a roadblock. I instinctively slowed down. You don't just drive straight through a police roadblock, even if it seems strange. I turned on my hazard lights and started to pull over to the shoulder, about 50 meters before the cones. The diesel engine kept roaring, but everything around was too quiet. Absolute silence, not a sound of wind, not a cricket, nothing. Just the noise of my own truck. I looked out the window. The patrol car was a white and black Crown Victoria, standard CHP, California Highway Patrol. It was parked at an angle, as if it had just arrived. The driver's door was ajar, but there was no one there. No police officer standing, no flashlights on, no movement. The emergency light was off. That bothered me right away. If it's an active roadblock, the flashing lights are always on. It's protocol. But that patrol car was there, parked, dark, with the door half open, as if someone had left in a hurry and forgotten to close it. I waited. Engine running, hands on the steering wheel, looking in the mirrors, hoping to see a police officer emerge from the side of the road, perhaps coming from the woods. Nothing. 1 minute, 2, 3. The silence began to weigh heavily. I could hear my own breathing. The truck's engine seemed too loud. It was unsettling. I looked at the CB radio, thought about calling someone, but call who? To say what? There's an empty patrol car here. That would sound idiotic. So I turned off the engine. I don't know why I did it. Maybe to hear better. Maybe because the noise was making me nervous. But the moment the engine stopped, the silence became unbearable. Heavy. As if the entire road had died. I opened the cabin door. The cold hit my face. I got out slowly, stepping onto the gravel of the shoulder. The sound of my footsteps was the only noise in the universe. My shoes crunched against the pebbles. Each step echoed. I walked over to the cones. They were positioned perfectly, forming a funnel that forced cars to swerve onto the shoulder. Reflective barriers, the kind the police use in operations. Everything was in order. Professional. But where were the police officers? I approached the vehicle. The driver's door was open about 15 centimeters. You could see inside. Empty seat. Radio off. No lights on. The keys weren't in the ignition. I called. Hello? Is anyone there? My voice sounded strange. Muffled. As if the air swallowed the sound before it could travel. No response. I pushed the door open slowly. It creaked open with a metallic sound. The inside of the vehicle was freezing, colder than outside. That kind of damp cold, you know, like it had been left open all night. But there was nobody there. No equipment, no radios turned on, no papers, nothing, just empty seats in that unbearable cold. That's when I felt it. Someone, or something, was watching me. It wasn't paranoia. It was real. That physical sensation of being watched. Like when you feel a gaze on your back and turn around, and someone is actually staring at you. Except this time, when I turned around, there was no one there. Only the darkness of the forest and the silence. I ran back to the truck. I got into the cab and locked the doors. My hands were trembling. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I turned the key. The engine sputtered once, and that second felt like an eternity before it started. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. I didn't want to see if anything was coming. I just floored it. The truck shook. Its wheels skidded on the gravel, and I swerved back onto the road with a sharp turn that almost made me lose control. I didn't slow down. I went past the cones, the police car, everything, without looking back. It wasn't until I was about 3 kilometers away that I could breathe again. My mind was racing, trying to understand, trying to rationalize. Maybe the police were conducting an operation in the woods. Maybe they were after someone. Maybe it was a drill. Maybe. But none of that explained that cold, that silence, that feeling of being watched by something that shouldn't exist. I drove nonstop. I passed through Weed. I passed through Eureka. I crossed the Oregon border before dawn. Only when the sky began to lighten, that pale blue of sunrise, did my body finally relax a little. I arrived in Medford around 7 in the morning. I unloaded at the warehouse, did the paperwork, tried to act normal, but my hands were still shaking. The warehouse staff noticed. "Are you all right, man?" the supervisor asked. "Just tired," I said. Lie. I went to a cheap motel on the outskirts of town. Small room, musty smell, hard bed. I tried to sleep. I closed my eyes. But every time I was almost asleep, I saw that police car, the door ajar, the siren off, and that cold. I gave up. I got up, turned on the TV, looked for local news. Nothing. I changed the channel. News from California. Nothing about a roadblock on I-5. Nothing about a police operation in Weed. I picked up my cell phone. I searched on Google. I-5, California lockdown. Operation Weed Chip. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. This made me even more uneasy. Police roadblocks are reported. They always are, especially on interstate highways. But there was nothing. No mention. As if it had never happened. Around noon, I was sitting on the edge of my bed, eating a tasteless sandwich from a corner diner, when I turned on the radio. Local news, traffic, weather forecast, and then the news. The presenter's voice was calm and professional, but her words froze me. Authorities are continuing to search for Thomas Garrett, a 46-year-old truck driver who disappeared early Thursday morning. His truck was found abandoned on Interstate 5 near Weed in California, with the engine still running and the door open. There were no signs of a struggle. Witnesses report seeing traffic cones and a police car at the scene. The California Highway Patrol confirms that no roadblocks were authorized in that area during the early morning hours. Any information should be reported to the authorities. The sandwich fell from my hand. Thomas Garrett. Same stretch of road, same night. Same vehicle. He had stopped, just like me, but he hadn't returned. I was paralyzed. The radio kept playing, but I couldn't hear anything anymore. Only that name echoed in my head. Thomas Garrett, 46 years old, truck driver, missing, truck found with the engine running. Door open, no signs of a struggle. I knew that name, not personally, but you know it. When you work on the road, you end up hearing names. At gas stations, on CB radio, in late-night conversations. Thomas Garrett was well known, a veteran guy, 20-something years on the road, never got into trouble, professional, serious, and now he had disappeared, in the same place where I was. That same night, my stomach churned. I stood up too quickly and almost fell. I went to the bathroom sink and splashed water on my face. I looked in the mirror. My reflection looked pale, my eyes sunken, as if I hadn't slept in days, and I really hadn't. I went back to my room. I sat on the bed. I picked up my cell phone and looked for more information. I found an online article from a local newspaper. Truck driver mysteriously disappears on I-5. I read every word. Every detail cut me like glass. His truck was found at 5:17 a.m. by another driver. Engine running. Headlights on. Driver's door wide open. Thomas wasn't there. His belongings were intact. Wallet, cell phone, everything inside the cab, as if he had stepped out for a second and disappeared. But what destroyed me was the witness's testimony. A driver named Miguel Ortega, who passed by the location around 4:30 a.m., said he saw orange cones and a highway patrol vehicle exactly where Thomas's truck was found. Miguel found it strange, but continued driving. When questioned by the police, the CHP confirmed no roadblock had been set up. No patrol cars were dispatched to that area. None. I closed my phone. My hands were shaking so much I could barely hold it. Thomas had seen the same thing I had. The same vehicle, the same cones, the same insurmountable roadblock. But he hadn't returned to the truck in time. Or, he had returned, but something caught him before he could leave. I started questioning my own memory. Had I really seen all that? Was the police car really there? What if I had stayed longer? What if I had gotten into the car? What if I had turned my back for another 10 seconds? Would I be missing too? I spent the rest of the day locked in that motel room. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I just sat there, staring at the wall, trying to understand, trying to remember every detail of that night. The door was ajar. The unbearable cold, the silence that swallowed all sounds, that feeling of being watched. And then a question hit me like a punch. Why did I survive? Thomas Garrett was more experienced than I was, more cautious. If anyone was going to notice the danger, it was him. But he disappeared, and I didn't. Why? Had I run faster? Or was it that I wasn't the target? Did something let me go? That night, I tried turning on the truck's CB radio. I listened to the other drivers' conversations. Someone mentioned weed. My heart raced. Have you heard about the guy who disappeared? a voice said. "I heard weird stuff, man. They say there are old stories from that area, false roadblocks, people who stop there and are never seen again." Urban legend. Maybe. But Thomas was a solid guy. He wasn't just going to disappear. I turned off the radio. Urban legend. Fake roadblocks. That was real. I saw it. I was there. And Thomas Garrett was never found again. That was 4 months ago. Thomas Garrett remains missing. No body, no clues, no explanation. The investigation has stalled. His family is still searching. But the police have nothing. How do you investigate something that shouldn't exist? I never told anyone I was there that night. I never called the police. I never gave my statement. Because what was I going to say? That I saw the same phantom police car. That I felt something watching me from the darkness. They would call me crazy. Or worse, they would think I had something to do with his disappearance. So I kept it to myself. I swallowed it. I tried to move on, but I couldn't. I changed my routes. I never took I-5 at night again. I never went through weed again. When my supervisors ask why, I make up excuses. I say I prefer other roads, that I-5 is boring. Anything. The truth. I'm scared. I started hearing stories. When you pay attention, they're everywhere. At truck stops, at gas stations, in the quiet conversations of the early morning hours. Other drivers talk about roadblocks that don't exist, empty police cars, cones that appear out of nowhere. Some say they're robbers, that they use fake uniforms to make victims stop. But nobody was ever robbed. They just disappeared. A guy in Bakersfield told me that his cousin stopped at one of those roadblocks in Nevada 10 years ago. He was never seen again. Another driver swore he saw the same patrol car 3 times in 3 different states, always in the early morning, always empty. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's something supernatural, a human trap, or something our minds can't process. All I know is that Thomas Garrett stopped, and I stopped too. The difference is that I went back to the truck, and he didn't. Sometimes, late at night, when I'm driving alone, I see lights in my rearview mirror, lights that shouldn't be there, police cars that disappear when I look again, cones on the side of the road that weren't there a second before. I'm not stopping anymore. No matter what I see, real or fake roadblock, police or not, I'm not stopping, because now I know. There is something waiting on the roads. Something that uses our trust, our obedience to rules, our need to do the right thing, against ourselves. Thomas Garrett did the right thing. He stopped. He went to check. And that killed him. Or worse, I was lucky. Or maybe not. Maybe I was marked. Maybe something is following me, waiting for the right moment. Maybe one day I'll see that police car again, and this time, I won't be able to escape. I don't know. All I know is that I'll never drive the same way again. I'll never trust a parking brake again. I'll never stop again. And if you're driving at night, if you see cones, barricades, a police car parked with the door open and no police officers in sight, don't stop. Just don't stop. Keep driving. Don't look in the rearview mirror. Don't question anything. Just keep going and pray that when the sun rises, you're still alive. Because Thomas Garrett stopped. And now he no longer exists. If you work the night shift, tell me where. And if you've ever been through something similar, you already know what to do.